It's really a great pleasure for me to be here today. And I teach in the Beis Yaakov in Los Angeles, and it's always exciting to see the girls around America, how they're doing. And I judge a city when I first come in on one thing. What do the billboards in that city look like? Now, you might never have been to Los Angeles before, so you'll have no idea what the billboards in LA look like. When I drive down the streets here in Cincinnati, and you see how tame everything is, and you see how simple everything is, you know that automatically there's a certain amount of purity that's in Cincinnati that you can't find in other cities. And I can see, even looking here at the faces of the young ladies today that are sitting here, there's a wholesomeness of Cincinnati that is shining through. And that's a very beautiful and important part of who you are as the young ladies of Klal Yisrael. In Los Angeles, on the billboards, it's all movies and stars, and I won't even go into the details over there. You might get jealous, so I don't want to let you know. But over here, there is a purity that you can see and that you can sense. Thank you very much. And it's something very beautiful and very heartwarming to see. I want to speak to you about the following idea today. When I started teaching in Beis Yaakov about maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and when I first got there, I was wondering to myself, why did Rebbe Schneer ever start a Beis Yaakov movement? Why did she start a system of schools for girls? If you look throughout the history of Klal Yisrael, there were yeshivas from the very beginning of time. We go all the way back into PARSHAS Breishis. Over there in the very beginning, we find there was a yeshiva of Shem ve'Ever. And it went on that Shevet Levi, the people of Levi, they ended up having a yeshiva as well. And even in this week's Parsha, Rashi explains Moshe Rabbeinu had more or less a yeshiva, how he taught it over to Aaron to his children, and so on and so forth. Yeshivas, then you have in the Gemara, you have in Bavel, and you have in Yerushalayim. There were many, many yeshivas for the boys, for the men, all throughout the generations. But the girls, they never had. They didn't have schools. They didn't have seminaries. They didn't go off to Eretz Yisrael after their senior year. They had nothing like that. So why did the Rebbe, how did they learn? They had good mothers. They had good bubbies. They had good sisters. They sat in the house. They learned what it meant to be a good Jewish woman. And that's all they needed. They didn't have to go to school. Could you imagine? No tests. You never had to learn one pasuk in the Chumash. No Rashi, nothing. Just sit with your mother. Learn what Amunah is. Learn what Yirah Shamayim is. Learn what Simchas HaChaim is. Learn how to take care of a house. Learn how to feel good about yourself. And you never have to write one term paper. It's a pretty good deal, no? So why did the Rebbetzin change the rules? What happened? So I don't know if anybody knows history of Klal Yisrael, but if you go back in time to those years in the 1900s, there was a very unfortunate thing that was going on in the world at that time. And it was hitting Klal Yisrael very bad. It was called the Haskalah. Anybody knows what the Haskalah is? Yeah. The Haskalah was a movement of Jewish people who said that we are maskilim, we're enlightened individuals. You know what it means to be enlightened? Enlightened means that we have other ways to live our lives without the Torah and without all the mitzvahs. They were very cultured, they were very bright, they were intellectual. And so they said they have all these ideas that they can reinvent the wheel, the Jewish wheel. And they were very strong in their arguments. And they would go and speak to the yeshiva bachrim. And they would speak to the young ladies in Klal Yisrael. And they would try to convince them, you should come over to our side. You should see what a good life we have. See how wonderful it is to be enlightened. You're darkened over there. You should come and be enlightened. And the Rebbetzin noticed something that was very scary to her. The most of the young people that were following the Haskalah, that were being pulled away from their Yiddishkeit, the ones that were being pulled away the most, were the girls, not the boys. And she was wondering, what's the story? How come the boys are remaining stronger and the girls are getting pulled away? And she realized because the boys go to yeshiva, they learn the Chumash, they learn the Rashi, they learn the Gemara, they learn Tanakh. They have good understandings of what it means to be a Jew. And so when someone from the Haskalah would come and start speaking to them and asking them questions, they had answers and they could not be penetrated. But what did the girls know? How to make challah. What, they know how to change a diaper? They knew something. They heard the mother whisper under her breath when she was lighting the candles Friday night about believing in Hashem and everything is in Hashem. What did they know? And so when someone from the Haskalah would come and give them a question or challenge them, they didn't have the answers that they needed to be able to stand up for what it means to be a Jew. So she said, we have to do something for the girls. And so she began a system called Beis Yaakov, which is really it's the mother of all of the schools for all girls, even for our Torah in all of the world. And I looked up to see what her mission statement was when she was going to begin this system. And I'll leave out a lot of the details, but one thing she says is so central, and that is the following. The young ladies of Klal Yisrael need to get to a point that they fulfill the mitzvahs of the Torah with sincere enthusiasm, which we call in Hebrew, hislavos. Anybody hear the word hislavos? No? They didn't mention that word in Cincinnati yet? Okay, we'll talk about hislavos then today. Hislavos is when you're excited about something. Hislavos is when you're looking forward to something. Hislavos is something that makes you happy, that you enjoy. When you're excited about things, the Rebbe said, you're not going to let go of them and you're not going to be swayed in another direction. But if you don't have hislavos, if you don't have enthusiasm, if you're not excited, if you're not looking forward, so then somebody comes with some idea, some wild idea about what life is all about, and it looks like they're excited about what life is, it pulls a person in different directions. So what are the things in life that in general we have hislavos about? Anybody here goes to summer camp? Nah, everybody's excited about summer camp. Applications came out already, right? Yeah, the minute it hits the inbox and the email, you're already getting excited. And then you go to camp and you see all your friends and you guys are screaming and yelling your heads off. You can't wait to see each other. You're hugging, you're kissing, you're showing each other everything you brought. And then you have those nights where you stay up till like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. You know those nights in camp? Schmooze the whole night through. And then like 6 a.m. you fall asleep. And you know how to pull the sheets up over your head just the right way, so that when the madricha comes in the morning to get everybody out for shacharis, she doesn't see that you're still in the bed. You know how to do that? My daughter said she learned it in camp. It's a big trick. But there's hislavos, there's excitement. Any of you go on family vacations in the summertime? You go to exciting places? Is there anything exciting in Cincinnati? You go to exciting places? And you're looking forward to that trip for months. You're like counting on the calendar every single day. One day more, one day more, one day more. Pack the car, get the food, go to the places, see the sights. You're excited. Anybody like chocolate? Yeah? Good chocolate you got on Purim? Yeah? You're enthusiastic about chocolate. You can't wait to see the shalach manas that come in. And a person gets excited about it. Why are you excited about all these things? You know why you're excited? Because right away you know what all of those things are. You know the geschmack, you know the excitement of being in camp. You know the taste of that chocolate, your favorite chocolate that comes in the shalach manas every single year. You know the vacation that your father and your mother have been planning for months already on end, and they rented the Airbnb over here, and you're going to fly on a plane, and you're going to go to this place and that place. You know how exciting it's going to be. So everybody gets excited about the things that they understand. where they can get the satisfaction and the pleasure almost immediately. When was the last time that you ever saw somebody get excited about coming to school in the morning? Well, let's start there. When was the last time that you ever saw somebody jump out of bed in the morning? I don't know, maybe in Cincinnati it's different. In LA it doesn't work like that. Jump out of bed. I'm so excited today to go to school. I love school. When was the last time you saw somebody do that? When was the last time you saw somebody after you guys eat? You have a dining room? And after they ate lunch, and they washed, and now it's time to bench. When was the last time you saw a girl say, oh, I'm so excited, I came to bench to Hashem. I'm so excited, I love benching. When was the last time? They daven mincha in school together? When was the last time that you saw a girl get so excited that she's going to be able to say Ashrei and daven mincha and pour her heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And she's dancing around the hallways. I'm going to daven mincha. I'm so excited. You ever see somebody like that? Why not? Davening, talking to Hashem, coming to school, you get to learn what it means to be a Jew. Benching at the end of davening, you get to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all the delicious food that He makes. Chesed, they have chesed hours in school too. After school, you go to somebody else's family. We don't do chesed for our families, right? We do chesed for other people's family. Anybody ever get excited to go? No, because those kids are whiny kids, and they drive you crazy, and the mother expects too much from you. Anybody ever get excited? Chesed. Olam chesed yibani. Hashem built the world with chesed. And we're all dragging our feet and trying to find every excuse in the world. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Schwartz, today I can't make it. I have a big test in 3 weeks. I have to start studying for today. Why are we excited? And the answer is because you might know what chocolate tastes like. You might know how exciting camp is. You might know what a pleasure it is to be on the greatest family vacation of your lifetime. But we simply don't understand and we don't know what the beauty and the richness of our Torah and our mitzvahs is really all about. And if you don't understand what it is, and you don't see the beauty that is there, it's very, very hard to get excited about these things. Let me ask you a question. I hope I don't get in trouble for asking such a question over here. You have to be honest the way you're going to answer this question. What would happen if tomorrow morning your mother would tell you, all these years you thought that you're Jewish, but guess what? You're not really Jewish. What would you think tomorrow morning if you woke up and you heard these words, you're not a Jew? Don't have to go to a Torah. You don't have to daven. You don't have to keep kosher. You don't have to keep Shabbos. What would you think to yourself? I know a true story like this. It happened to one of my friends. He married a girl from somewhere in the Midwest, not here. And she was a Balis Tshuva. And she thought she was Jewish. Her mother, as far as she knew, was Jewish, and her father was Jewish, and so she was a Jew. She became frum. She married this young man. He was learning, they learned in Koila. They were raising a beautiful family. Their oldest son at the time, I think, was about 15, 16 years old in yeshiva. And one day, the wife's aunt is passing through town where they live. And she says to her, Rebecca, I think that was her English, Rebecca, she said, you know your mother? Yeah, of course I know my mother. You know your mother, she converted before you were born. You knew that, right? She said, yeah, I remember hearing something about it. She says, but you know that your mother's conversion, it wasn't a good conversion. And the woman, who is a frum lady, with a husband that had learned in Koilel, whose kids are all in the Jewish school, said, "Excuse me?" Now her mother, I met her mother one time. She used to call this woman's husband, was named Mordechai. She said, "Oh, Mordecai, hey Mordecai, how are you?" No, your mother's not really Jewish. She had a very suffix, like a quasi-conversion. So the husband and the wife begin getting nervous. And they call the mother. And they ask her, "Ma, tell us the story. What was your conversion like?" And it turns out that it was a very, very shaky conversion. He calls his Rav. He tells his Rav the information he just finds out. And this is a shaila that went around the world. It was a very big shaila at the time. And at the end of the day, the psak halacha is that the entire family, the mother and all the children, have to do what's called gir l'chuma. They have to convert just to make sure that they're actually 100% Jewish. So the father and the mother sit the kids down. And they say, "We have to share some unfortunate news with you. We just found out that grandma didn't have the greatest conversion in the world. Which means that your mother might not be 100% Jewish. Which means that you, our children, might not be 100% Jewish." So the two oldest children, one is a boy sitting and learning yeshiva, the other one is a girl. She was like in a Beis Yaakov school. The boy starts crying. He said, "Does that mean that all the mitzvahs, all the Torah that I learned, everything was for nothing? I didn't get any schar, no reward, nothing?" And the father said, "No, don't worry. Don't worry. Everything you did, it all counts." And the girl gets this big smile on her face. And she says, "You mean I'm not Jewish? I can go right now and do anything I want?" And the father said, "Well, not so fast, because it's like not 100%, but you're 90%. And she was very disappointed that she didn't get a free day to go and do whatever she wanted. Why did the boy cry? And why did the girl get excited? Because the boy understands how beautiful Yiddishkeit is. He understands how beautiful the mitzvahs are. He understands the excitement of another davening, of another day in yeshiva, of another chesed, of another mitzvah, guarding his tongue from speaking lashon hara. He understands. And the girl herself, one of the disconnected of the generation, who doesn't see the beauty, doesn't see the glory, doesn't see the royalty of Yiddishkeit. So for that moment that she heard, maybe I'm not Jewish, she got excited. Is it that easy? Just press the button, check out? Said Rebbetzin Schneer when she was beginning the Beis Yaakov movement, if the girls would have hislavos, they would have an excitement to their Yiddishkeit, to their mitzvahs, to the performance of what it means to be a Jew. So that all the maskilim in the world could come along and speak to them and try to convince them that if you live like this, you'll feel happy. If you do this, you'll be better. But if you know what you have, if you know the treasure that you're sitting on, if you understand what it means to be connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom, so that nothing in the world could come and pull a person away. About maybe 5 years ago, we had a Ger Tzedek that came to our shul for Shabbos. His name was Rav Yosef Peretz, a very fascinating person. He grew up in Mexico, and he came from a very large family. I think there were like 10 kids in the family. And he was raised in a very Catholic family. As a matter of fact, he was a preacher, and he had a big kehillah, I guess you would say. He had a big, big community. His father was a preacher. He was a preacher. His mother was like running the show. And all the kids were involved. But he said he always felt he's missing something in his religion. And one day, ba'ashkacha, he bumped into a frum Yid in Mexico. And he had a lot of questions about the Bible. And he started asking this Jew, this religious Jew, his questions. And the answers were fascinating to him. And slowly but surely he began learning more and more and more, until he realized the Torah is the emes, and whatever he's believing in is the sheker, it's not true. And he started to go through the process of conversion. And he's a very charismatic person. He convinced 8 of his 9 siblings to convert to Judaism as well. Then he convinced his mother that this is the emes, mom. And she converted. Only his father and one of his sisters held out. They decided to stay where they are. The rest of them picked up. They moved to Eretz Yisrael. They raised amazing families. He came to us for a Shabbos. And I called him up for an aliyah to the Torah. And he gets up to the Torah. And he did something that I've never seen before. You know, you ever go to shul? Most people go, that's the bracha. They just rattle off. He gets up, he holds the Sefer Torah with his hands. And he just pauses. And he takes a deep breath. And then he starts saying the bracha. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. You have chosen the Jewish people from all of the nations. V'nosan lanu Torahs emes. And you gave us the Torah of truth? And then he started crying. Standing at the bima, in front of an entire shul, he started crying. Because he appreciates what it means to be a Jew. He appreciates the value of Torah. He appreciates the mitzvahs that he has. So for him it means something. When the Torah is something that is meaningful to you, when you appreciate it and you value what it is, what you have, so then you look forward to a davening. You look forward to a chesed. You look forward to a Shabbos. You look forward to an extra couple of hours in school and a 5-minute. Tell my daughter when I go home, she has nothing to complain about. She gets off at 12:45 on Fridays. I'm going to say there's a school in Cincinnati that doesn't get off till 2:30?
1:30.
Oh, 1:30.
Elementary.
Oh, okay. This school?
The elementary gets off at 2:30. We get off at 1:35.
Okay,
I know
fine.
I'm going to get in a lot of trouble already.
No, but you're an hour behind, so it all works out the same. Because we have a Shabbos an hour earlier. So we're actually spending more time in school than you actually. So when a person begins to see all of these things, so then Yiddishkeit takes on a different shape and a different form. One of the great people that we lost last year was a man by the name of Rabbi Uri Zohar. Anybody ever hear of him before? Yes? One person, yes. Who was Uri Zohar? You want to tell us? Or should I tell them? You want to tell us? Tell us.
I don't really remember.
Okay.
I just remember my father talking.
So Rabbi Uri Zohar was an amazing, amazing person. He was an Israeli, what we call Chiloni Legamri, which means he had no connection at all to religion. On the other hand, he hated religious people. He despised religious people. Thought the Torah was archaic, out of date, had nothing to do with life. He was the biggest movie star in Israel, the biggest TV star. You probably don't know what TV is over here. He was on, they had something called the radio in the old days. He was on the radio. He was the biggest of the biggest. Everybody knew who he was, and he used to make movies sometimes making fun of religious people. One day he comes in contact with an ultra-Orthodox Jew in Israel. He had a friend who was in Hollywood, whatever they call it in Israel. And the guy was making a party, and this person started dabbling in Yiddishkeit. And the rabbi that he was getting involved with, he said, "Why don't you come to my Hollywood party? I'm sure my friends would like to meet you." And so this rabbi came. And Uri Zohar said, oh, I'm going to have so much fun at this party. I'm going to make minced meat out of this rabbi. I'm going to show everybody what a fool and his religion is all about. And so Uri Zohar gets up as if he's on stage. And he starts asking one question after another to the rabbi, think that he's going to stump him and make him nervous. And the rabbi stays calm the entire time. And he's answering every question that Uri Zohar asks him. But Uri Zohar is like a showman, so he's making jokes and everybody's laughing. And the rabbi just keeps staying calm and answering the question. Uri Zohar said, nobody knew what was going on in my head at that time. I'm making jokes and everyone's laughing. In my mind, there's a whirlwind going on that this rabbi has something that I never heard before in my life. And after the party, he gets the number and he calls the rabbi. He says, I need to sit down and learn with you. And slowly but surely, this man, the biggest Chiloni of Eretz Yisrael, became a Baal Tshuva. And it was the biggest shock to the Hollywood world. But it was even more shocking to his wife. Because his wife was not on board at all. Shabbos, she doesn't want Shabbos. Kashrus, no kashrus. Take the kids and put them in Jewish school, doesn't want such a thing. She wants nothing at all to do with it. So they were living together and trying to make things work for quite a number of years, and it got to the point where he was so religious and she was so anti-religion, they decided there's nothing that we can do. This marriage is not working. We cannot stay together. We're going to have to get divorced. And it was a very hard decision for them to make. But they felt they had no other choice. And he tells the story. It was the night before they are supposed to go to the court and get the official divorce paper. And Uri Zohar goes to sleep and he feels so bad. How could it be that religion is tearing his family apart? And about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m., he wakes up. And he looks over and he sees that his wife is not in her bed. And he's wondering, where's my wife at 3 o'clock in the morning? And he goes downstairs. And he sees his wife sitting at the kitchen table. And she's reading a Rambam. Now the Rambam is a very complex sefer on halacha, on deep ideas. And this woman is sitting at the table, she's reading the Rambam. And Uri Zohar walks down, he sees his wife looking at the Rambam, and he looks at her, she looks up, and she says, her eyes open with wonder, I don't understand anything that he's saying. But I understand that there's something very special here. And if this is what you've chosen to dedicate your life to, then I'm going to dedicate my life to this as well. And she became a Baal Tshuva, and all the kids came along with them. They had more children afterwards. I was in their house maybe 27, 28 years ago for a Shabbos. They lived in an apartment in Eretz Yisrael, maybe the size of this room, and maybe I'm being exaggerating if I say that it was this big. You're talking about a man that had millions of dollars, big homes, different homes. He was living in a tiny apartment in Yerushalayim. And that night at the Shabbos table was such an eclectic crowd you can't imagine. I remember one of the guys that was there was a fellow with tattoos all over himself. In his skull he had tattoos. And Uri Zohar told me, I picked this guy up from the streets of Tel Aviv, saved his life. A year later, I saw this fellow married, pushing a baby in a stroller. They were so poor, they could not afford to serve meat at the Shabbos table. Everything was fish and parv, that's it. In between the fish courses, that's how they made it special for Shabbos, they had different fish courses. His wife got up to go to the kitchen to get the next plate of food. While she was in the kitchen, there was a lightning and a thunderstorm. And all of the men at the table, led by Uri Zohar, started making the brachas. And the Rebbitzin walks in as we are finishing the bracha on the thunder and lightning. And she looks at her husband. Makara, what just happened? And he said, oh, you're in the kitchen. There was thunder and lightning. I missed it. I missed it. And she goes and she sits down by the windowsill. And she's looking out the window and she refused to move from that space, from that place, until the next round of thunder and lightning came. And when the thunder and lightning came, like a little girl, she jumped up with joy and she said the brachas on thunder and lightning. And then she was relieved that she got to see Hashem's wonderful world. She made the brachas, she went back to the Suda. This is a woman who had nothing. She's on the brink of divorce from a religious husband. And 20 years later, like a little girl, she's so excited for the brachas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets her say. When you have hislavus, when you have excitement over the Torah, when you have excitement over the mitzvahs, when you appreciate and you value what it is that you have. So then mitzvahs and performance of mitzvahs and living a life like a Torah Jew, it's a different world. It's more exciting than camp. It's more exciting than the vacation. It's better than the biggest shalach manas that you got last week. Because you're getting treasures. You're getting gifts from the Rebbeinu Shalom every single minute, every single day of your life. And I was thinking that perhaps, with 2 more minutes, I was thinking perhaps maybe that's something we can take with this week's Parsha. Because we know that we're coming off the heels of Kabbalas HaTorah by Har Sinai, where all of Klal Yisrael is raised up to the level of Nevi'im, like Moshe Rabbeinu. We saw Hashem, we heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice like nobody in history ever would before. And 40 days later, after all is said and done, we're dancing around a golden calf. Can you explain that? How can a nation that had the greatest amount of excitement in the world, 40 days later, forget about everything and make an egel azav, a golden calf, and start dancing around it? How could such a thing be? And then we find that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe to make the next luchais, he says, Psal lecha, you carve them out for yourselves. So perhaps this is our discussion. Camp is exciting. And vacations are exciting. And chocolate is instant gratification. All that's true. Yiddishkeit is not something that's going to be a life of instant gratification. It's not a life of, whoa, amazing excitement, blow you out of this world. No. Yiddishkeit is something that psal lecha. You have to work on it. You have to make the effort. You have to look to see the goodness and the beauty and the glory and the chashivas, the importance of it. To find the geschmack, the pleasure that's in there. And when you do, those are the luchais that never leave Klal Yisrael. The luchais rishonos, broken pieces in the aron. The luchais shniyos, the second ones, that we made ourselves. That we put the goodness inside of it ourselves, those are the ones that stay forever. So there's many things that a person can do to open up the world of Yiddishkeit to them. I'm sure being part of a school like this, like a Torah itself, is an amazing opening into the world of Yiddishkeit, to realize how precious and valuable it is to be a Jew. But even on your own time, maybe there's a mitzvah that you don't feel so connected to. Maybe it's chesed. Maybe it's lashon hara. Maybe it's amunah. Maybe it's Shabbos. There's so many books that are out there today in English. Nobody has almost any excuse anymore not to learn a little bit more about what they want to learn about and work on. And they make so many of these books right now. It's like a lesson a day. A lesson a day about amunah. A lesson a day about chesed. A lesson a day about Shabbos. About shmiras haloshen. And a little bit that a person learns every day, and you try to internalize the message that you are learning, you're going to see that it's going to change your perspective on the beautiful world of Torah and mitzvahs that HaKadosh Baruch has given us. And when a person begins looking at their life like that, then if somebody would come and they would tell you, what do you think would be tomorrow? If your mother would tell you, I forgot to tell you 15 years ago, you're not really Jewish, you would look at it as being the biggest nightmare in the world. Because when you realize that you have a treasure, and you have the greatest gems, and you have things that are more exciting and more glamorous and more glorious than the most extravagant vacation that your family can go on to. Probably here they don't go to Cancun from Cincinnati. No? Yes? No? LA, they love to go to Cancun and Hawaii. They do that over here? A little bit? No? Anyway. It's better than Cancun, it's better than Hawaii, it's better than the Bahamas, it's better than all of that. One act of chesed, one benching with a little bit of kavanah, one shmona esrei, is so precious and so valuable. You're all the richest people in the world. So thank you for the chizuk to come and see such a chashav school that are headed by such a wonderful group of the Nehelis and the teachers that are instilling and imparting to you the message of Hislavus, of giving over the encouragement and the enthusiasm of Yiddishkeit. And in Mirz Hashem, if you keep up the good work, which it looks like you are, you'll see yourself going far places in Judaism the rest of your life. And you one day will be a shining example and an inspiration to the rest of the Jewish people that you meet. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
So happy to meet you, and I came to Cincinnati almost like just to speak to us and to tell us what we need to hear. Thank you so much.